and full of smiles and interesting conversation, albeit the temperature is nowhere near what it was the last time we spoke. Hello and welcome to the Coaching Hour. I'm Paul Rotherham. This is another edition of our Coaching Hour podcast, brought to you, as you know by now, in proud partnership with Coaches Network South Africa. It feels as though summer has made way for winter without even going into autumn. I'm not sure where you are in the world, but here in Johannesburg and Pretoria, it has been quite a bit chillier than it was. We went literally from a heat wave straight into what felt like winter over the weekend. Not exactly the best weather for Valentine's, but hey, nice to have you here. I'm joined, as always, by my co-hosts and friends, Maryke and Mary. And once again, I am outnumbered because we have as a guest, yes, another lady today. Maryke, tell us who's joining in.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, we are once again privileged to have Tilesia Colyn with us for a very interesting conversation. She's a reformed advocate, transformed, converted to a coach, where she helps people to transform their minds. And she also does some relationship coaching, more conscious uncoupling, as you mentioned, Tilesia. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here.
Awesome. We are going to talk about an interesting topic, and I really look forward to this conversation. We are going to talk about beliefs and the fact that it's difficult to change beliefs. In fact, there's a few coaches that we've interviewed who believe that some core beliefs cannot be changed. So I think it's going to be a very interesting topic. Tilesia, why did you choose that topic for today?
Well, thank you, Maryke. I think the topic was chosen because so many people suffer in their minds. So many people often go through the horrific things of the future only in their minds. It never really happens. The dreadful incident, the boss that doesn't like you, the friend that rejected you, your partner who's unfaithful, stuff like that, that maybe is happening or is not even happening at all. You're putting it in your mind and it often just happens there. And the unfortunate thing is that our minds do not know, especially the brain, the physical brain visualizing, does not know the difference between a fantasy and reality. We experience it the same. So can you imagine if you dread something or you have what we call a mistaken belief, you're actually putting yourself through that trauma cellularly just by thinking of it or imagining it. So the reason why this topic is so close to my heart is because I really want people to stop suffering because this life is so short. In fact, it is really a blink of an eye. And so many people go through this life not realizing that today is a gift, and then they literally disown themselves of receiving that gift because of the fact that their minds are faulty. Oh.
I saw we always look at the cameras, what's unmuted, and then we wait for each other to speak. Now there's a belief, like, we're talking about beliefs, but there's a belief that it's difficult to change a belief. We almost feel like we are the victim of those subconscious beliefs and what we feel is true, even though we know consciously that it's not true. There's always this inner struggle, why is it so difficult or not?
I think it's difficult for various reasons. And I think one of the main reasons is because we don't know better, because we don't have the tools, because we are unaware. A lot of these things happen subconsciously. Many times we think the thoughts of our parents. We think the thoughts of our grandparents without even knowing. We grew up in a household where if there was faulty thinking, if there was, for example, a parent or an uncle who was maybe close, or a grandparent who had faulty thinking, maybe they had depression, maybe they had even something like a pathology where they maybe have a bipolar disorder, not that I even really, I'm very much with Gabor Mate here, that there's the big myth that pathology does not really exist. It's complex trauma, then presenting itself in that mind challenge, if I can put it that way. Okay. Say, for example, there was that and it wasn't untreated. Or there was a mother who had constant eating disorders or constantly on a diet, and she thought a specific way about herself, and then she obviously is going to use words. The child picks up on it. The child then starts to internalize that, and the child then has these thoughts. So you actually grow up with the faulty thinking. And the thing with the brain is you build a pathway, and that pathway really gets very, very thickly ingrained. It's very much then part of who you are. And then when you're an adult, it's almost like it's too late because now it's there. And how do you change it if you don't know how to? So I often like to quote one of my clients who said, Talise, you don't know what you don't know. And it's a simple sentence and it is life-changing because it's so true. You don't know what you don't know. If you don't know that you are stuck in a negative mindset, for example, then you wouldn't know even what a negative mindset is. So knowledge really is power in this instance, it really is empowering. That's why I'm so pro everyone at least having some sort of, I don't want to say self-help because that can sound like there's something wrong with you. Look, we as humans are meaning-making creatures. We want to make meaning. Most of us want to make meaning of our lives. So there's so much information out there these days that I actually want to say there's not an excuse to be stuck with thoughts that taunt you, that haunt you, that cause suffering towards your own self and others. So yeah, I think to sum it up, there's many reasons why we have these thoughts and why we think it's difficult to change it. And basically, it comes from childhood and it's for a lack of knowing that there's a better way, there's a better route to follow. Yeah.
I think if you lie in your bed at night and you give some time and attention and thought to your own thoughts, you're probably able to realize where it is that you're slightly out of line and out of sync and not in keeping with yourself. But you need to set aside the time to do that, and you need to be conscious, and it needs to be something that you're actively doing. That brings me to my question of where do you start in this process? Because I think we're all guilty, and I use the term guilty loosely. I know you're an advocate, so guilty and not guilty ties in very nicely with your world, or at least it used to. But how do we sort of figure out where it is and where our false beliefs are? Because if we've been living them for so long, we don't see them as false. We think it's part of who we are. It's part of our makeup, but that's not the case.
Yes, it's not the case. It may be part of our makeup. However, if that makeup makes you to suffer, then you need to take it off and put on something new, like take off that makeup and then reapply something new. How do you do it? By observing your thoughts, like you correctly said, Paul. And there you have to make time. There you have to deliberately and intentionally stop whatever you are doing and sit in silence. So I have a beautiful silence practice where I literally use the acronym silence, the word silence, and the S is for stop. Stop. Become silent, become still in your cells. And then you inhale, you let go. Then you examine your body. You go through a body scan. And then you notice your feelings, then you captivate your thoughts. You take those thoughts captives. You can also notice your thoughts. So how does it look, noticing your thoughts? Like you said, you sit on your bed or you lay on your bed and you think, what did I think today? I had a coaching club last night, and one of the check-in questions was to reflect, what was the best thought I had today? You see, just by asking yourself that, 9 o'clock in the morning, what is the best thought I've had today? People would tell me often when I worked in the clinic, the patients would say, it's 9 o'clock. I can't have it. No, you can. What was the best thought you've had so far this morning? Just to challenge yourself in that regard, because there's a beautiful psychologist, Marissa Peer from the UK, and she would often say, reach for the next best thought. So you literally see how your thoughts go by you. And then you literally have to kind of imagine how you go in between the thoughts. And, or you stand on the balcony and you observe your thoughts. It's Eckhart Tolle who says that I'm not what I think. And then the question was posed, okay, so who are you? And then he answered, I'm the one observing what I think. It's
Hmm.
where you kind of detach yourself from these thoughts because the thoughts, that's just memory from a database, from childhood, from school, from unhealed wounds, from rejection, from everything that's going on. And it's so busy. So if you can really detach yourself from your thoughts. And you can stand on that balcony and you can just observe. I literally see my thoughts coming in like almost like a bird's flight, coming in the one part of the horizon, then going out, coming in, going, and somewhere there I catch them and I go in the middle of them and I just sit there and I can just sit there and then soon there you just think nothing for that moment. I can just think nothing.
It's such a wonderful analogy, and it reminds me of a conversation I had with a very dear friend of mine, Matthew. About 3 months ago, we were out running together and we were talking about our thoughts while we were running. And for a lot of people, exercise is a great time and a great place to clear your head, to think happy thoughts and positive thoughts. And through our conversation, we realized that a lot of what we were talking about and thinking wasn't actually positive. Even though we were thoroughly enjoying our running and loving what we were doing, we were running past people who were driving badly and past litter and blocked drains and sewage pouring out into the dam. And that was feeding our thoughts into a place where we weren't positive. And my friend Matthew, he gave me the most incredible analogy, and it stuck with me very similarly to how you've explained it now with the birds. And he said, Paul, he said, in our life, we are actually standing on a platform at a railway station. And he said, all these trains, day in and day out, these trains are coming and going. Some of them are stopping. Some of them are express trains racing through the station, going past the platform. He said, those trains are like our thoughts. We don't have to get on every one of them. We can
Yes,
watch them. We can watch them come and watch them go and do absolutely nothing with them. We don't have to be
yes,
involved with them. We don't have to even look at them. We don't have to consider them. They're there. We notice that they're there. They come and they go. And he said,
yes.
in exactly the same way, because that's how we are in the day. If you think about how many thoughts we have, it's I guess, limitless, really. It's infinite. And so he said,
Yes.
be selective about the train that you're going to get on and the train that you're going to pay attention to. And that for me, maybe it's a guy thing. I don't know. I related to that and it resonated very well with me. And I thought, man, that's a brilliant analogy.
That is a brilliant analogy. And I don't think it's a guy thing. I really think it's a human thing. I love the train analogy. I love it so much because we all have a destination in mind, right? When I get into my car or when I get onto a train here from Hope Bay to, or Hope Bay then, to say where it goes, Simonstown, I get into the train because I know I'm going somewhere specific. I just don't go into a train or onto a train at least with no destination in mind. So you have to ask yourself first thing in the morning, what do I want to create today? What do I want to think today? Who do I want to be today? Dr. Joe Dispenza has a stunning book where he says something to the effect of breaking the habit of being myself. Like we need to break the habit of being this old person. We are here, like Maslow said, to self-actualize, that bottom part of safety and all of that, and then moving towards that part of self-actualization. And I do believe that as a person who knows what their destiny is, where they're going, and then how are you going to get there? Because you have to be selective with your thoughts, because every thought you think creates an emotion, and every emotion creates something you do. If I thought to myself this morning, oh, I have so much to do. Now I still have to do this live. And how am I? Can you imagine how this would have turned out? Whereas when you go into that, human thinking style of, oh, now, before you even think it, you nip it in the bud. You don't even then look at that train anymore. You go and you look towards the other train because your destination is to change lives, for example, to make an influence, to be an impact, to let this life count for something, to not do harm, you know? So know your destination. That would be my very practical tip would be first thing in the morning, what's your word? I have a client, she would often say to Lisa, what's your word and what's your color for the day? And every day she would ask herself a word and a color. And it's so interesting because it really keeps you accountable to what you're busy creating and the destination that you are heading towards. Yeah, I love that.
It also keeps you on track when you do it like that.
Yes.
I liked when you said you don't know what you don't know, because that is the beginning of a process of learning, is when you don't know that you don't know. Then you become aware of what you don't know. And then to change, Maryke, you said, how do we change our beliefs? To change the beliefs, you've got to unlearn what you learned by following that process of first being aware, then now that you are aware, you discover what to do, because you still don't know what to do. So you become curious, and then you ask questions. You find a way to practice a new way, and then you practice, and that becomes the new path. Where you said that the pathway is so thick. That's where we get stuck, is that pathway so thick, and we think that we can't go beyond it. The only way to go beyond it is to practice a new thing until that pathway is developed into another thick pathway. That's how I see it.
Definitely. And how I also see it, and what has been very vivid for me the past week, and I understand why it has been so vivid in my spirit, is this this black hole. We often speak about, not necessarily a black hole, more like a rabbit hole. Don't go down this rabbit hole. Okay. So often in life, there are certain thought holes that represent rabbit holes, that if the moment you go into that hole, you are going to go down and down and down and spiral either in a depression or spiral in breaking your diet, and then just go and eating whatever you want to eat, or even going on a binge drink because you entertained that thought, or even just you can even do stuff like be unfaithful and have an affair just because you had that thought and you started walking towards that rabbit hole, and then you fell in that thought hole, and then that created you to have actions which you don't really wanted to have, or then you are very regretful of. So just imagine that there are certain thought holes, negative thought holes or rabbit holes. Then what we do in life as humans, we think we can test ourselves because we're strong, so we kind of walk there. We just have a little negative thought. No, it's not that bad because it does suck. Yeah. No, it's not that bad because that guy really is an idiot. No, it's not that bad because the government is really this faulty. You just start to entertain a little bit, and then before you notice it, you've fallen into that rabbit hole. So often with rehab centers, they will give this example of the rabbit hole, and they will tell the patients or those who are booked in a clinic, they will tell them, you don't walk that way anymore, because you don't even try to go the other way anymore. You take an airplane or a train and you fly over that rabbit hole. Okay, you flip and fly over it. You don't walk anymore. How does that flying look? How do you do that? Because like you said, Mary, there's now you don't know what you don't know. Then you become aware, and then you practice it. The thing is, what is the practice? How do you do that? That is where the key comes in. One of the techniques is, like we spoke about, the silence, to notice your thoughts, to become aware of your thoughts. Now that you have become aware of your thoughts, you need to stop persisting them. Because if you persist them, they either just continue and become worse. You know those thoughts that you have, like, I could have done this, but I didn't do this, and I should have done this, and I couldn't have, and why didn't I do this, and I should have did it. And then you go into that rabbit hole.
Guilt. guilt
Yeah.
spiral.
I think we all do that. It's
Yeah.
that negative thought spiral. I don't know. How do you deal with it?
A question quickly.
Yeah.
Sometimes a person is not necessarily aware of what they're thinking, but they might be aware of what they're feeling. So they're just not knowing that they went actually into that rabbit hole. Now you're feeling depressed. You're no longer aware of even what you're thinking. Maybe you're not really thinking anything. So what's your take on that perspective from there?
Yeah. That's an interesting question, especially if you're not really thinking, then I'm
Mm,
wondering, where are you in your thinking style? Because thinking has a pattern,
mm,
a pattern that has to be changed or broken altogether.
mm.
Can
So,
it not be a trigger? Because it can be a thought that's buried in the cell,
Good.
and then through association of a smell or something that they've heard, or it triggers a feeling.
yes, yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, there's triggers. I'm going to give you an example. And I really want to answer Maryke's question because that's very, very often the case. Most people aren't sure about their thoughts, or they don't even know that they have stinking thinking. How do you know you have stinking thinking?
Mm,
For me, the thoughts are like the root, and your behavior and or feelings are the fruit. So there's a part of me that wants to say you will most know that you're not feeling that you're not feeling yourself. And then the question is, what if you've felt that way all your life? What if since a 16-year-old or even earlier you've felt this rotten feeling of depression or anxiety? Or I do believe that we instinctively know that this isn't the way to go. There has to be some barometer that says, I'm not feeling well, that my emotions are getting the better of me. I feel drained. I feel lethargic. I just don't feel good. So let's make the distinction. Let's say you get people
mm,
who are maybe more towards the side of a pathology. I don't like using the word, however, let's say that is where they do suffer from a severe depression or an anxiety or even like a narcissism. People like that don't even know that their thoughts may be gaslighting other people. So they have that deliberate, blatant thinking of sabotaging people or of getting a revenge. So we're talking about stuff that I think for this platform, let's leave that there. And
Yeah,
then, yes,
yes, I'm going to just rephrase. So let's say, for example, a person doesn't know that they are feeling down because something triggered the belief I'm not good enough. So, because it takes a certain awareness of knowing that this thought is actually linked to this feeling.
yes,
Does it make sense?
it
So
makes
not
sense.
everybody is necessarily aware, or people struggle. If I talk to some of my clients, they struggle to identify what it is actually that they do believe that's making
Yes,
them feel, they don't necessarily, it's difficult to observe the thoughts. So
yeah.
what practice can one do if you're not certain? Like, what are the thoughts that I'm thinking that's creating the suffering, as you've
Yeah.
mentioned?
Yeah. I think to get back to Mary is to become aware of the fact that there are stuff that triggers you. Okay. And how do you become
Mm,
aware of a trigger? The moment you felt a specific way, and then all of a sudden something changes,
mm,
there's the slight change. Either you then become sad or anxious or something. So to really be aware of where you are at in terms of on the line,
mm,
your emotional uh, safety or your emotional state. So, one, to become aware of the trigger. Two, to become aware of what's happening in your body, because your body
mm,
keeps the score, like Bessel van der Kolk says.
yes.
So, the moment you feel this, oh, what is that? Start to inquire, what is that? Why? Oh, anxiety. Why am I feeling anxious? Oh, I just thought about that workshop that I have to present. I
Mm.
haven't prepared yet. Oh, okay. Well, when is it? In 2 hours' time. Oh, you have more than enough time if you Speedy Gonzalez. Okay. So, but you see what I did there? I went
Mm,
into my body. I inquired from my body, what is here? And then I did not stop the inquiry. I say, where are you from? What are you feeling? What are you thinking? So you kind of first identify the feeling in your body, and then you go to what brought it about. I'm going to give you a practical example. With a trigger and also with an activating event, because that trigger is formed by an activating event. Okay, so I want to speak about a lady with the name of Byron Katie. I don't know if you've heard of her. She is amazing in the field of mindset change. She's over 80 years old now, and she still does the work. She's calls it the work, and she does these worksheets, and she calls it the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, with one belief at a time. This is very practical work. I was with a client yesterday. I said, I think we are ready for the work, of Byron Katie, because it's very challenging. It's very challenging. I had to deal with this one time with infidelity, and how I had a mistaken belief that he shouldn't have cheated me. No, you would think that that is a very legitimate thought to have. He shouldn't have cheated you. He or she, they shouldn't have done it. Everyone I think here would agree, but that's very legitimate to have that thought. Not so. Because if your thoughts create your own suffering, why are you thinking thoughts that are causing you to be in a state of pain? You have all the power over your thoughts. Like Paul said, you choose which train you embark. Okay, so bear with me. I'm reading the work of Byron Katie. It was back in 2018 when I first heard about her, and she was in and out of clinics. She had some, I don't know what, I'm not sure if it was a bipolar diagnosis or something similar, and in and out of clinics. Later, they got so frustrated with her, they put her at the last end of the hall, like last room. And it was amazing, where she one evening lied on the floor in the fetal position, and she just lied there, and she didn't feel good enough and worthy to even lie on the bed. That's where she was mentally and emotionally, physically. And she lied there, and all of a sudden she experienced this white light, and she just heard this very, very, very clear voice saying, "You are causing your own suffering with your thoughts." And that, my dear friends, are one of the first sentences that I wrote down in my journal when I started my own inner healing process. You create your own suffering with your thoughts. I wrote it down, and I actively started engaging with my thoughts, realizing that, yes, thoughts are real. They're protein molecules. They exist. They are there. They actually form this spark. They're real. And not all of them are true. So this is what Byron Katie actually taught me. And I read the one evening, to get back to your question, Maryke, to bring it practically, because this is really practical and it was profound for me. And I really want us to then kind of go and think of our own lives and where we can incorporate this practice. So I read the one evening that she said, meeting your thoughts with understanding. That was the chapter's heading. And I thought, meet your thoughts with understanding? Like, how do you do this? Sounded very interesting. And as she explained, if you don't meet your thoughts with understanding, they are going to persist. Okay, they're going to persist. One of her other books, A Thousand Names for Joys, she has in chapter 60, she says, give evil nothing to oppose and it will disappear by itself. So don't give your thoughts anything to oppose. It will then disappear by itself. So don't oppose your thoughts. Don't resist it. Meet it with understanding. Engage with it. Try to understand why they are here. Just think about the reason we have thoughts. We have thoughts because we are creative human beings. So we create with our thoughts. This glass was not here until somebody actually thought, "Ooh, that would be nice. Thick rim here, and then this here, and then let's say it's crystal. We're going to use crystal." and then voila, there's a glass. So thoughts are there to create. However, we have started to misuse our thoughts by just allowing them to go willy-nilly and just to go freely in our minds like little stoutkinders, like very naughty children. Yeah. And that's what thoughts are. If you do not give them attention, they will be like a little naughty child, and they will pull on you until you become aware, until you notice them and go a bit further and understand them. So practically, this really happened to me. I was driving just after my divorce. I was driving. So I'm on my way to the fishmonger. I'm going to get some fresh fish, and then not thinking that I'll get any wine or anything, even though there's a liquor store next to the fishmonger. I was just on a happy mood. I'm just going to go get some fresh fish, and then it's just, going to be a lovely day. So I'm driving. And as I'm driving past a specific place. This specific place had my ex's place of work, okay? And the moment I saw it, I had the thought, oh, yeah, maybe he's now with her and they have the baby. And the moment I wanted to even think that thought, because you can imagine where that can go. You can imagine where that can go, right? The moment I thought, wait, let me meet this thought with understanding. That's what Byron Katie said last night. I read that. And then I went, oh, I can understand why you are here. I mean, I had high hopes for a successful marriage. I never thought about getting a divorce. I wanted a baby. I even dreamt about leaving the baby there, going to Woolies, having this whole Pretoria East life. I could meet my thoughts with the dearest, most tender understanding. And I promise you guys, I can't even finish what that thought was today, because the moment I met that thought with the dearest and kindest understanding, it left me. I could have really physically feel it just go. So beautiful. And the work didn't stop there, because what I realized was the moment I could meet it with understanding, it did not affect my emotional mood. And I know myself back then, if I had to think and continue that faulty thought and entertain that, I would have felt very miserable. I would have gone into rejection. It would have been terrible, the emotion. I would have gone to the fishmonger. I would have also bought wine, maybe 2 bottles. I would have drank it all. Maybe I wouldn't have cooked the fish. It would have gotten rotten. I had to throw that away. And besides that, maybe I got drunk. And then it was this drinking, texting, you did. No, I preserved myself, because I met my thoughts with understanding. That was powerful. So I'm not sitting here today saying, oh, this is it and that is it. I'm sitting here as living proof that there are tools out there that we can use that can shape our lives to have the lives that we actually want.
Do you think, Tilesia, that there is in some people a case of self-sabotage because it allows them to justify how they have been behaving or living? And I'm going to give you just a quick example. I know someone who lives on waking up every morning to turn on the radio to listen to the news. And this has become an entrenched behavior, knowing that 99% of the content that is going to be heard in that news bulletin is negative, depressing, sensationalized, in some cases completely untrue, biased. The list goes on and on and on. Yet this person makes that a part of their daily routine, to the point where I think that that is almost guaranteed to set you up for failure for your day. Because one of the conversation starters that we had in this podcast was, be mindful of your thoughts, choose your thoughts, and be conscious in what it is that we're thinking of, and making those positive. I mean, you said earlier, think of the one positive thing that was in your mind, and gosh, at 9 o'clock, well, I haven't really had a happy thought. And long story short, that's just one example, I think, of how we are conditioned, yet We chose to open the door. We chose to turn the radio on. We chose to listen to the news. Your comments on that sort of behavior?
Yes, thank you. Obviously, we have a choice in everything we think, feel, and do. Some people will disagree with me and they will say, Tilesia, if you are in this place, you will not have a choice to feel different. I really disagree. We always, here I want to say always, have the choice to think, feel, or do something better. Even reflecting on today, we can reflect back and think, how can I, because you're just as good as your last performance, they say, right? So how can I better this thought, this emotion, this thing I did? And often what people then do is they criticize themselves. That's not going to help. That you're just going to persist with the evil. If you're going to be your own nightmare, if you're going to criticize yourself with that inner pathological critic, what you want to do is you want to give yourself some technical suggestions. Oh, so, okay, this happened. What did I learn? Let me give myself a technical suggestion. Next time I'm going to do this. This ties in with that friend of yours, okay? Yes, people choose to do things, listen to things, think things because of fear. Get this. He obviously fears something like if I had to not listen to the news, then I actually have to be accountable for the things I think. I have to be accountable for the things I do. I have to be accountable and actually get into a good mood. I actually have to change. People like to get stuck on mistaken beliefs. Okay, so Jet, just let me pause here. I'm going to come back to a mistaken belief. Okay, we get, in my mind, just for today's live session, let's say 3 specific scenarios. We get a mindset, we get a delusion, and we get a mistaken belief, okay? So a delusion can be part of a mindset, a mistaken belief can be part of a mindset. However, I just want to distinguish that you can choose your mindset, just like you choose your body type. And I understand there are examples or at least exceptions like hormones with body types, and there's some stuff like challenges health-wise that you, however, if you go on a very, very healthy lifestyle, you can get the body you want, even a better body than what you have, just by making minor changes, okay? With the mind, it's the same. You have to work at it. You will not get a healthy mind style just by waking up the morning. You have to actively work on it. I saw a couple yesterday. I asked them, listen, can I lose weight for you? No. I often give that example. And then they're like, no, I'm like, so can I not do the work for you? You have to physically do the work. Okay. The mindset work is the same. Yeah, you can have a negative mindset or a positive mindset. If you have a negative mindset long enough, like your friend, if he chooses to do that long enough, I kind of want to guarantee that he's going to fall into some minor depression. And that is going to keep him in a place where he's going to be passive. And that is going to keep him at a place where he can maybe make excuses for the things he does. Eating too much, drinking too much, not being friendly, being maybe not accountable to his family. I'm not sure what his lifestyle, what his circumstances are. However, he has a fear there. And now that fear caused a severe or a mini depression. Okay. Then you get a delusion. A delusion is very scary, you guys, super scary, because it's often when you realize that a person has a delusion, it's too late. And often people with delusions struggle very, very heavily to get out of it, and they need expert professional advice in terms of psychiatric treatment. The delusion is where you have this fixed belief that, for example, my wife is cheating me. There's no evidence, there's nothing. And somehow you have this belief and you follow her around everywhere and you check on her. And I'm thinking of a case where a guy had a brain injury in a motor vehicle accident. And after that, he formed this delusion. Okay. Or people use drugs and they go into a psychosis, what we call. This can often happen with marijuana, and that's why teenagers should be so cautious with using this, because you can quickly go into a psychosis or even sparks schizophrenia, if you have that predisposition. In any event, then there can be a delusion in a specific area. The rest of your life is fine, and in that area. So that's another thing. And then the mistaken beliefs. This often is a belief that is rooted in words that go never, always, every time, no one, everyone. It's these absolutes that you create in your mind. Everybody is fake. That's a mistaken belief. This country is doomed. That's a mistaken belief. And if that friend of yours listens to the radio every day, he sets himself up for failure. That is a sabotage. And then he will get a stronger mistaken belief of everything negative. And then to sway him, you'll have to come and see me. Besides that, he can ask himself 4 questions, which Byron Katie often speaks about. When you have a thought, you ask yourself, is it true? Is it true? And often people say, yes, this country is doomed. Is it true? Yes. And then, can you absolutely know that it's true? Can you absolutely know that it's true? That all people are fake? Can you absolutely know it's true? And then often people will come and they would say, no. And then the third question is, how do you react when you believe this thought? You have this thought, now you believe it. How do you react? Now you got onto that train, let's say, for example. You get into that train and it's like, oh, we're going to fall. It's going to be awful. So the reaction is often something like, I mistreat my boss. I speak horribly to my husband. I feel anxious. That guy, friend of yours, he will go, I will just burst out all the negativity and I will slam my cup of coffee and I will have a cigarette, so there's where the compulsions and stuff comes in. And then the fourth thing is, who would you be without the thought? So if you can ask yourself those 4 questions. She has many other questions, like, does this thought bring you peace or does it bring you stress? So whenever you have a thought, just ask yourself, is this bringing me peace or stress? If it's bringing you stress, let it go. Get another one.
Get off the train.
Get off the pause it. There's this beautiful Japanese saying, and I'm not sure if I'm going to even get it right. However, it's something to the effect of, when you notice that you're on the wrong train, get off it as soon as possible. For if you stay on that long train long enough, or longer than you should, it's going to take you much longer to get back to where you were, to get on the right train, So the moment you notice it, change it. And then just the last thing with the fear. Often people hold the thought for fear. And then when I ask them, and this is the work of Byron Katie, what do you fear will happen? Why do you hold on to the thought? So your friend, why do you continue this behavior? The self-sabotage. Sometimes it's often rooted in something like, well, then I have to forgive him. So I hold on to the thought that he shouldn't have cheated me. Why do you keep the thought? The mistaken belief. Because what do you fear? Because I fear that then I have to actually forgive him, or I have to accept it. Or sometimes the fear is, then I actually have to be nice to her. So I keep this mistaken belief, she's fake. Why do you keep it? What do you fear? Then I actually have to be nice to her. Yeah. So that can easily be the case of self-sabotage.
So much to digest today, Tilesia, and thank you so much. Our time, unfortunately, is short, and I know that we do have limited time with these podcasts, but I think we could definitely continue a conversation in this vein for probably many hours and still pick your brain and learn a great deal. So thank you very, very much for sharing with us today. We really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Byron Katie, for bringing us the work.
Yeah. And I think we should share those links, Maryke, when we post this podcast. Let's share the links not only to Tilesia's platforms, as we will do, but also to the authors who you've referenced, because that's very helpful. And that's why we're here. We're here to help where we can. We are certainly far from perfect. We're all fighting demons. We're all dealing with false beliefs and misnomers. And so these sessions, I think, very often are wonderful coaching sessions for us, just
Yeah,
as much as they are for you.
Oh, that
yeah.
is good. That is so good.
Thank you, Tilesia. I really love the way that you express and explain it. Your communication is amazing.
Thank you,
You
Mary.
know, you put it into such simple perspective that it's so easy to understand.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Mary.
100%.
Thank
We'll
you.
leave it there. Tilesia, thank you very much for your time. We know you're busy and we really appreciate you giving up some time to spend with us and with our audience here on the Coaching Hour. So thank you. And we'll definitely look forward to chatting with you again. Thanks so much.
So good. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Maryke, Mary. Thank you. And thanks to you for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.